Thando, and today we are talking about what is the appropriate age gap for dating in queer relationships. I posed this question on my Instagram and the masses engaged me. But before we get to those answers, which I'll read right at the end of the video, I just want to share what my stance is on the subject. Is that okay? Okay, cool. Mine's very simple. I believe that if you are 20 to 25, you should be dating people around the same age as you. But if you want to be a little bit more flexible and if you're looking for a situation where somebody might be more mature than you, has more life experience than you, I think you can push it all the way to, let's say, 28, 29. All I want for the people in their 20s is to be dating within that 20s decade. That's my take. My thought process is that when you're in your 20s, it's the age when you are starting to figure some things out. Some things you don't even know that you're going to have to figure out as yet. And you just don't need somebody who's been here longer than 29 to be, I don't know, just influencing how you think things through and how you absorb things and how you process things that life throws at you. Now, for the people who are in their 30s and above dating people who barely just came out of teenagehood, let's have a chat. I know in the hetero world that is in Hollywood or some obscure religion or cult or outdated tradition, it is frowned upon for people to be dating people who are decades and above your junior. Albeit with the rise of the slay queen, sugar daddy, sugar baby, blesser age, having normalized it, it is still very frowned upon to be having relations with people who are light years younger than you. The reason why I'm even sitting down and talking about this is that I have a feeling that in the queer community, these kind of inappropriate age gaps between people dating go unchecked because our relationships are already unconventional. So it feels as though, vele, you guys are the other. So anything that you do is going to be other anyway, and there is no way for us to regulate or police it. And I feel like we should constantly just, side eye, just question, just think it through as a community. There's a lot of things that pass in queer relationships that just simply wouldn't in hetero relationships. And for the most part, that is a good thing. But some of the things are not good, and we should just keep them in check for only protection purposes. For instance, getting married and getting wedded. There are certain different things that happen in those two unions that wouldn't apply cross a sexual orientationally. Paying lobola is a thing that couple by couple would have to decide how they would have to go about, because it's not the same. If you're two women getting married, who's supposed to pay lobola, who's supposed to receive it? So you customize it for yourself, and we don't have a rule book in the queer community of how it's supposed to be done. And I think there's a beauty in that, and it's great because you decide what to do with your marriage and your wedding. Whereas in a hetero situation, no one considers you married if you don't go through the proper steps of getting wedded. Another example, in hetero relationships, it's frowned upon to be moving in together before you get married. But with the gays, you'll be moving in together within 2 weeks of knowing each other. And no one will raise an eyebrow because unconventional relationship to begin with. So we just don't know how far the unconventionalism goes. So you just let people be. There are several other differences in the dating world between heteros and homos. But one that I feel shouldn't be different is the age gap thing, because one thing we all have in common as human beings is age. Every 365 days, we add another year to our life on this floating rock. We all have that in common, gay or not. So the reason why I threw this question to the masses on Instagram is because I actually don't know what the baseline is, what we all agree on as a community / as just society at large. If people are getting more lenient of people dating with wild age gaps, or are we concerned and worried that that could be possibly a recipe for disaster? So when I looked it up, the age of consent in South Africa is actually 16 years old. Legally, you can consent to having sex at 16, and therefore, I imagine that's where people are like, yep, that's my line. That's where I draw the line. I'm not going to date anyone 15 and younger, but 16 upwards, it's fair game. However, I'm just like concerned about like, why would you want to be dating somebody who is busy with their trial exams? Why are you disturbing a child who has a netball game next week, Saturday? Because that is still a child. And I know it's different now, but when we were growing up, there's a lot of people who hadn't had their period at 16. There's a lot of people who hadn't grown some boobs at 16. But obviously with the different stuff that we eat now, that has changed. But still, that doesn't mean that that person now is ready to be dating a 30 and above year old. So it makes me wonder then, why would a person who is in their 30s and above want to date somebody who is barely legal to date? And if I don't think about it too deeply, I can only come up with two reasons. One, you don't want to date people your age because you don't want to be held accountable, because people your age are going to check you constantly. They're going to require you to have healed. They're going to require you to have sorted out a few things about your life in order to take up space in their life. So you don't want that. So you go for somebody younger so that the power dynamic is shifted and you're on top, and you can manipulate the person that you're with into doing things that they wouldn't if they were informed, if they weren't being coerced, if they had better intel. And that to me is worrisome, because I genuinely can't think of another reason. If you do have a reason why you are not dating in your age group, or at the very least people who are in their mid-20s, why? Tell me in the comment section. I want to learn. Maybe there is something that I am blind to, and I enjoy that about this channel. We teach each other. But as it stands, I just don't understand why, as a 30 and above year old, you want to go and dump decades worth of baggage on somebody who's just starting to figure life out. Like what's the payoff here? Yo inkankane. And I just want to make it clear, I'm not talking about situations where this is a blessee situation, sugar mama, sugar daddy situation, because my understanding is that those relationships are very, transactional. I'm talking about full-blown relationships, where not every time you're not looking for somebody who's close to you in age more than a decade. I just want us to think about it and why, your reasons why. And also I would like to know. I'm pretty sure there are some people who know that the longest relationship I've ever been in was with a person who was 12 years older than me. I was 21 when we met, and she was 33 years old. It used to be this funny jokey joke in the relationship. Uti, when I was born, she was entering puberty, like having to deal with pads while I was still dealing with diapers. And now looking back, I'm like, it wasn't funny. Now, this video is in no way meant to be disparaging towards her as a person. It's really just using that relationship of mine as a case study of what can possibly happen in relationships with those kind of dynamics in terms of age. I'm very fortunate that she has been a really kind person. She had no ill intentions. She was just good people's, and I have no visible scars from that relationship. However, there are cons to having been in a relationship like that. One of the biggest cons of having been in that relationship is that because of its off-axis power dynamic nature, it pretty much shaped who I became as a young adult, and perhaps part of who I still am even today. And that's because of the timing of when I got into the relationship, when I was still molding myself into becoming who I am, and just self-discovery in general. So who I was becoming became interwoven with who she already was and who she was sure she was. She was big into church, and to get closer to her and to get her to like me and for her to feel like we are kindred spirits and we like the same thing, I had to amplify my relationship with God, which is a little messy, you know what I'm saying? Because I was at church like, okay, cool. I'm going to get so close to God just so I can get close to this woman. And the messed up thing about that is that had that been a cult, I would have been knee deep into a cult too. Because at that age, we are easily swayed into falling into any kind of belief system because we don't have one of our own that is sturdy and we are sure of. We're still trying to figure things out. So it's like, maybe I am into this. Next thing you know, you are eating a weave in church. She was also very closeted at the time, and so was I. So the relationship made me feel very comfortable with having conversations with Aslan. That's a Narnia reference to you Gen Z people. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. I can comfortably be with a person who's also closeted, so we'll just be closeted together forever and it'll be beautiful and amazing. What? To me, she was incredibly wise, and I treated her like an oracle because she had the language and the sentence construction and the wisdom beyond her years, when really she just had wisdom beyond my years. But it seemed like, oh my God, she's so learned. I'm going to learn so many things, which, I mean, I did. There's a lot of stuff that I learned from her, but that's because she's lived that long. Not necessarily because she's wise beyond her years, but 21-year-old. I mean, she is a wise person still, but like it was just amplified for me because I had never met anyone who was my age, who spoke like that, who made sense in that way, who thought that way. But that's because I was 21. Only a few 21-year-olds would think the way that she did. So a lot of the things that she shared with me, I just took as fact, as the Bible, because I trusted her. And of course I loved her. I was madly in love with her. But in hindsight, I'm realizing how dangerous that was. Had she wanted to feed me garbage, and there are a lot of garbage women out there, I would have been in danger. My life would have turned out very differently from the way that it is now. Had she just been of a different temperament, she could have easily led me over a cliff. Another con to the relationship was that I always felt inadequate when it came to holding space for her. Spiritually, obviously, I was learning from her, so I couldn't be her prayer warrior. She had like a horde of friends who were like intercessors, who would intercede on behalf of her. They would have these prayer meetings and things. So I was just like, I'll just kappa you, but like, I can't help you. You can't come to me if you are feeling spiritually parched. And it made me feel like I was just an accessory in her life. Even financially, like her friends drove fancy cars, were buying fancy apartments, and I was just starting out, like barely just came out of a stipend from an internship, and I couldn't hold myself financially, let alone being in a relationship with a person who's established and much older than you, who has different needs. I needed sneakers, okay? I didn't have a car. I was cycling to work, so I didn't need petrol. Like none of the stuff that right now, if I got into a relationship with a person who's 21 years old, I've got a freaking bond to pay. I complain about petrol prices every chance we get. I'm a breadwinner at home. Like there's just different needs for 30-year-olds than 21-year-olds who care about sneakers and drinking and partying and going to music festivals every chance they get. And that's what those years are for. It's allowed to be foolish with your money, although it's not advisable, obviously, but it's understandable. And that's when you should be making those mistakes, if you are to make those mistakes. It's worse if you're starting only to make those mistakes now at my age. Again, if she was a terrible woman and I was of a different temperament, I can just see how people get into debt trying to keep up with their lovers, especially if those lovers are either of a different tax bracket or just different generation. Those are about a few of the hardships of such relationships. I'm pretty sure she also has like a list of things that she can speak to being cons of being in a relationship with somebody who's that much younger than you. But the thing about it is that as a person who's older, it's your responsibility to ensure that no one gets harmed in that relationship. It's not the responsibility of the person who's still learning and figuring things out. I'm really interested to hear what everybody has to say. Maybe it's not a big deal at all. Maybe 21 and 25 to 25-year-olds have the agency to decide who they date, and they feel like they're mature enough and they can handle themselves, and that could possibly be fair. It's just I worry whether they are going into it having thought it through, and whether they even have the knowledge to know. Like, you don't know what you don't know. So, but as a person who's older, you do have a bit of more intel. So I think that's my quandary about the situation. But you let me know. Anyway, let's get into the answers that people gave me on Instagram. A lot of them were just people telling me, people just gave me numbers, right? Let me just read through these, okay? Someone said, in your 20s, I think it's tricky. I won't date anyone that's 3 years younger than me. I don't know. I think that's a bit too strict, but that's each to their own. As long as you are not dating somebody who is not of age, because then we're talking about a criminal. In my 30s, probably no. 20-something-year-olds, after that, it is what it is. Huh? Right. I feel the same way. Like, I feel, and I also think there's an element of, my younger sister is 26. So every time I think about dating somebody that young, I'm like, no, ew. So I'm biased in that way. So I feel this person. Next person, age is just a number. Siyeke indaba za se home affairs do. I don't know, my babes. There's a few people who said the age is just a number thing. That's Aaliyah's song, in reference to Aaliyah's song, that was produced by R. Kelly, who's what? A pedophile, a rapist, a kidnappist, a stealer of human beings. And so I don't know if that's the reference you want to use when talking about the subject. You feel me? Dated a 40-year-old at 24. Disaster. I dated a 21-year-old at 30. Mess. At 33, I do not date under 30. I got you. Boom. Kindred spirits. I get you completely, and I know why. I'm turning 22 this year, and I'd only date 20 and above. I'm 18, 19 would feel wrong. 18, 19 would feel wrong. Right? Also, it's just, why? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want to gain from that relationship? What do you, like, next. I'd prefer not more than 5 years, but we can work on it as long as it's not over 10 years. Agreed. I also think my cap is 10 years from my age. From 30, I'm 33 this year. From 30 and above. Actually, from 30 and above, do you? Like, I would absolutely date a 70-year-old. Please, whatever. Because you are... The idea is that you are mature enough. If you're not, that's your fault that we can't excuse your ignorance. That's your baby. You have no excuse to not have read anything, to not understand anything, to have done no healing. That's your business. But people who are younger are allowed to still be figuring things out, are allowed to still not know what's happening. I mean, I'm not saying when you're 30 and above, you know everything, no, but the fundamentals should be there. If one party is 25, 5 years-ish is appropriate. If all are over 25, then have it. Exactly. That's my feeling as well. And I think there's a lot of people who actually share the same sentiment. That if you're 25, you can date that age group there by 20. Date each other, nyafana, man. I know you think you're grown, but like nyafana, you are still dealing with the same things, and it's okay. I think then from 25 upwards, then it's a game of preference. Now we can talk about preference. But before that, I don't know. Same age was acceptable for me, but now I'm okay with older. Def's not younger than me. Agree. This one is interesting. The acceptable dating age gap for the gays would be within your generation. E.g., you're 32, I'd say 10 years your senior, perhaps 4 years your junior. I definitely agree with this. I mean, it can vary, obviously, do whatever. When you're 32, actually just go off, do whatever. But it's the young ones who are impressionable and who are still figuring things out for me that I worry about. So we are in agreement here. I have nothing to dispute. So my lover is 47 and I'm, 35. Does the age gap not stop after 30? I don't know if it stops, but I think we don't care anymore. People can take care of themselves. If you're 30 and above, the consensus is that you should be able to take care of yourself. You should have the sense to protect yourself, or just measures, ways to not be reckless and put yourself in dangerous situations. Whereas with 21-year-olds, they trust people who are older only to find out they're actually predators. That's, you know what I mean? I think it depends on where you are currently with your age. I'm 30 and dating a 36-year-old. Let's go. Yes. Seconded. 5 to 8 years for me. Take what you get, boo. No. No. I refuse. Personally, 6+ years older than me, never younger. Same. I've never dated anyone who was younger than me. Depends on an individual. If they are okay with being in a relationship, nengane, or neskogwane, ha 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 ha. I don't know. I think, because the thing is also there's people who are of the sentiment that even these children are also always coming on to older people, because older people are kind of, there's an appeal there of being with somebody who's mature, somebody who has a car already, somebody who has their stuff sorted out already. But there's like real consequences to it. So the responsibility will probably lie with the older person. So watch yourselves. Both you, older person, and the younger person is all I'm going to say. Yimi Kenjalo, older woman, lol, even me. I'm 33 this year, babes. Single older woman, man. Someone just, are you dating a child? Should there be one to begin with? Thereby. I don't understand what that means. Should there be an age gap to begin with? No, I think that would be too strict to only look for like people the exact same age as you. No, that's not feasible. That's unreasonable. Just within reasonable bounds, that's where you should date. I think I'm gonna limit, maybe I'm wrong, you are wrong. The freedom and beauty of adult consensual consensus. Holland Taylor, Sarah Paulson go, Humanati. Agreed. You see, this is what we like. 30 and above. Do you? Somebody says, don't preferences play a role? What's acceptable depends on what the individual wants when dating. You want to date children? That's weird. Preferences are not the Bible. Preferences are not without regulation. Some people prefer to not ask for consent when having intercourse with people. They do. They prefer that. It's their preference. But it doesn't mean it's okay. No age gap. It's a bit too strict. Let's get into the DMs. Someone said, I really don't think there's this one-size-fits-all approach to the question because a lot of the things are based on preference. But personally, I wouldn't date anyone who is more than 8 years younger than me. While we might vibe and have things in common, there is definitely an imbalance. Be it perspective or power or even understanding. The older one should be more responsible about the decision, but we all know life is very gray. I think that's the perfect way to sum it up and end it up. There's so many more that I didn't get through. But yeah, I absolutely agree with this person. Sure, it is a preference, but your preferences must be within the parameters of legality, at the very least, because we can't get into morals and ethics and things, which is kind of what this video is trying to talk about. But in any case, yeah, that's the video. I feel like this is a kind of conversation that's open-ended. Yeah, that's it from me. I'll see you guys in the next video. I cannot wait to hear what you have to say in the comments. Bye bye.